Hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, we got to talk about tampering. Brett Bielema is not happy with Georgia. And is Brett Bielema look, he just likes to stir it. He stirs that pot like crazy. The last several weeks, he's been in the middle of everything. And I never thought I'd be talking about Brett, of all people, especially in the offseason. But, man, he's in the middle of every controversy there is. And this is the most recent one. And this was a story on The Spun. It says Brett Bielema accuses major SEC football program of tampering. And I'll show you the clip of him saying it. Now, he has backed off of that a little bit since then. I'll show you that as well. But it would appear to me he was making the insinuation that Georgia had tampered. And he was on the triple option. Said Bielema spoke about the loss of star running back Josh McCray, who entered the transfer portal and promptly transferred to Georgia. And, of course, he hinted that he was very suspicious about it. And I'll play that for you.
We did lose a guy to Georgia. Somehow he found his way to the portal, and 12 hours after being in the portal, he was on a flight to Georgia. I don't know how that happened, but it's crazy.
Weird how that happened.
So, but with Josh and all the best, he took advantage of that opportunity. So
yeah, so he tried to clean it up there at the tail end, wishing him the best. But that is odd how somebody could enter the transfer portal and within 12 hours, they're in Georgia. That's pretty surprising. Look, we were in the tampering season back then. There was so much tampering going on, you couldn't even keep up with it all. And we're going to show some more tampering here, and we'll talk more about that later on in this video when we talk about Tennessee, who tried to get their quarterback, it would appear. It said a lot of the college football fans applauded Bielema for taking Georgia and head coach Kirby Smart to task. Many feel that the Bulldogs have been tampering and cheating for a while now. Oh, boy. One viewer said, honestly, I'd like to see more coaches call this out. I really would. And then, of course, you had a lot of other comments. But this kind of all started with Brett. If you'll remember the South Carolina game, they played in a bowl game. And, of course, Shane Beamer does what he does. He had to do his little fake play, and he pretended, or here's what really happened. We all know over the years that when a player is getting ready to field a kickoff, they do this, which means they're downing the ball. Well, technically, you're supposed to do this. But over a period of time, it's just turned into this. And, of course, the refs all know that, and they immediately down the ball. And really, it's just a matter of protecting the players, because that's the most dangerous play in football, because you've got guys running full speed and full speed the other way, and that's when terrible injuries happen. So college football, they'd love to get rid of that play, but it's so popular. So they've made it to where it's super easy to get you out to the 25-yard line instead of the 20, and they want to make it as safe as possible, and just that move right there, and they end it. Well, Shane Beamer, being Beamer, kind of said, oh, wait a minute, I could maybe do a little sneak play here. So he went to the refs before the game and said, look, my player is going to do this, all right? But he's not going to do this, just that. So he's really not downing the ball. So he's going to run with it afterwards, so don't blow the whistle, because technically he didn't really down the ball. And you know those refs are over there going, crap. Technically he's right, but man, this is crappy. And you know they wanted to go over to Brett and say, look, this is coming, but they couldn't. So Beamer had it all set up with the refs to pull this trick play. And when it happened, Brett Bielema got ticked off about it. And later on in the game, when he had an injured player, he went over there, and the injury didn't happen from that play. But he wanted to let him know he didn't appreciate it. And he turned to the bench and Beamer and did boom, put his hands out like, you're just a punk. And Beamer lost it. Oh my gosh, he went crazy, which was very entertaining. And Bielema, I don't think he expected Beamer to go so nuts over it. And it's not like Beamer is some purity test. I mean, the guy got fined $25,000 for taking information he was impermissible to have from another team. Hint, hint, Connor Stallions.
The sign stealer guy.
That wasn't the actual Connor Stallions thing that I think happened and that most of you think happened.
Allegedly.
But he's not opposed to doing something a little bit. And that's a technical legal term. So Bielema likes to bury the hatchet after stirring the pot because I just think he likes doing that. I think it's fun for him. So here he is, he buried the hatchet with Beamer.
Shane Beamer, have you talked to him?
Yeah, I actually called him. I'm a very, I get caught up in the moment. But that one was kind of more of just a little moment in the game. So I literally called him. There was later in January, we have a coaches convention, and I knew his dad was getting an award, so I probably knew he was going to be there. And I was going to try to make it to the event, couldn't do it. So I called him and had a conversation, and was very, very cordial. So I think you gotta get past those moments. That ended up being a rule change, So it, probably in the good of the game, it was actually a good thing that it happened.
Now, he also recently talked about the SEC and how it needed to move to 9 games. And I'll show you that comment. And this was on ESPN, and it talked about how Bielema wanted 9 league games for all conferences. And when he spoke at this meeting, he said, I don't think there's any way we can do a 16-team playoff if they're not at 9, speaking about the SEC. He said, we voted unanimously as Big Ten coaches to stay at 9 league games and actually maybe have an SEC challenge. I was told that they voted unanimously to stay at 8 and not play the Big Ten, but then some people pop off and say what they want to say because they want to look a certain way. I get it, but I think until you get to 9 for everybody, I don't think it could work. And I find that pretty interesting coming from Bret Bielema because he does understand that the SEC schedule, when you play top to bottom, not just top, is a very difficult schedule. And if you've ever looked at the strength of schedule, you understand that perfectly because you would think the Big Ten playing 9 games, the SEC playing 8 games, that the Big Ten would have a tougher strength of schedule, right? I mean, that should be the case, but it's not. And I've shown you this a couple times. I didn't realize this was even the case. I thought it would be much more even than it was. I knew SEC would probably be in the lead on this, or as far as having tougher games, but I didn't think it'd be this lopsided. And this was after 12 games, which is the regular season, which is when you determine the playoffs, which is what counts. You look at strength of schedule, and how many? 11 of the first 12 are all SEC clubs. Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida, all the way down. You don't even get a Big Ten team till number 8, and then it's all SEC all the way down to 12. So 11 of the 12 teams are SEC. But you want them to move to 9 games in the SEC to make it even for the Big Ten. That doesn't make sense. If it did, I'd be the first to say it because I wouldn't mind going to 9 games because I don't like playing FCS teams. I don't think it's very exciting or entertaining. But I understand why they do it. It's because their schedule is such a gauntlet. They need a kind of easy win in order to level the playing field with everybody else. Now, I do want you to see what happened after the full season because obviously a lot of these Big Ten teams and the other teams played tougher games in the playoff for obvious reasons. And that did change it at the end of the year. But this is what matters because this is when you determine the college football playoff. But I will show you that. So after all the games were played, it wound up Georgia State at 1, Ohio State moved to 2, then Texas, then Notre Dame moved all the way up to 4. You had Alabama, Florida, there's Tennessee at 7. Here's Penn State, they got in the top 10. There's Oregon in the top 10. Michigan was 11th. So after the entire playoff and all the bowl games, yes, it changed. But again, this is what matters, folks. This is how they determine who goes into the playoff. So there's no question that if the SEC moves to a 9-game schedule, it would be even more unbalanced. So not what Bret Bielema is insinuating. And on top of that, Bret knows it's true because I went and looked at his background, and he of all people should understand this. But he's in the Big Ten now, so he's drinking that Kool-Aid, which I understand. If I was in the Big Ten, I'd be drinking that Kool-Aid too. When you're getting paid millions and millions of bucks.
Ain't it peculiar how money seems to do that very thing?
But here you go, folks. Here he was at Wisconsin where he was super successful. He won 66% of his conference games. These are just conference games. He went to Arkansas, won 27%. Now he's at Illinois. He's winning half his Big Ten games. So you can see the dramatic difference that he had. The success was, it's not even close because the SEC is tougher from top to bottom. Now, the Big Ten's caught up at the top. I don't think there's any question. You got Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, etc. And I kind of include Notre Dame in that even though they won't join. So they've caught up there, but they haven't in the middle and the bottom. But don't be surprised if over the next 10 years they do. It could easily happen, but as of right now, that's not the case. So moving SEC to 9 games would be a dumb move for the coaches because they know it just get them fired. And so they're not going to fall for that trick. Although, like I said, from a 10,000 feet view, it looks unfair. Oh, SEC's only playing 8 games. Big Ten's playing 9. That's not fair. But it is fair. Actually, it's unfair to the SEC. And you can yell and scream at me about that all you want, but you saw the numbers. You can and those were team rankings. That was not ESPN, so don't come at me with that crap. I read those comments. All right, now we got to talk about the last one. If you think he commented about Kirby Smart getting his running back, Tennessee was very interested in Luke Altmaier during the whole Nico Iamaleava saga when he stupidly went to UCLA. And Tennessee didn't have a quarterback that had any experience. They had a redshirt freshman, Jake Merklinger, who hadn't really thrown an important pass, and a true freshman who, oh my gosh, on Crane & Company yesterday or 2 days ago, I said George McKnight instead of George McIntyre. And the reason I did that, if you'll remember, when George McIntyre was being recruited, Deuce Knight was also being recruited. And it was a close call as to who Josh Heupel was going to take. And for some reason, because I covered that so closely, I combined their name a bunch and started calling him George McKnight instead of George McIntyre.
Worlds are colliding. George is getting upset.
Anyway, I made that mistake talking about all our quarterbacks on Crane & Company 2 days ago. And did I get hammered over that from Tennessee people. Oh, you're not a Tennessee fan if you miss that. People, I have to know hundreds of names every once in a while. And for some reason, I love to mix that name up and call him McKnight. Anyway, the thing about YouTube, if you make a mistake, oh, you're going to get killed. Oh, you're just going to get wrecked. But anyway, let's get back to Luke McIntyre. See? It's easy to do. All right, anyway, Luke Altmaier, not Luke Alt McIntyre. Anyway, said during the whole Nico thing with Tennessee, only days before the spring portal, the rumor picked up. It said a lot of the popular names that Tennessee was interested in was Luke Altmaier. And Luke said there were opportunities for me to venture onward to the next level or also play at another program. And it talks about how he was from Mississippi, so playing in the SEC would interest him. He even said it was a difficult decision, but I know what's important and what we were creating here, etc. Now, we covered this quite a bit, and there was a bunch of stories about Tennessee was very interested in Luke Altmaier and that there was big money involved and that he actually turned down more money coming to Tennessee and decided to stay at Illinois for less money because, look, it was springtime. He'd already signed a deal, which I don't even know if that means anything, the way players move around. But it's hard to leave in the spring because you're already set up. I mean, you're only just, 6 months away from playing football, and he already knew the system and all of that, and it probably would have messed him up. And I'm kind of glad we didn't go take Illinois' quarterback from him. I think that would have been kind of I don't know. It just wouldn't have felt that good taken from another team like that. Now, if you'd have done it in December when everybody was kind of in the portal, you had 30 or 40 choices, that would have been very different. But in the springtime, see, that would have put Illinois in a terrible spot, same as what Tennessee was in. So I'm okay with where the situation is. You don't really want to put somebody in a terrible spot by taking their quarterback, especially their quarterback. That's what's super difficult. So anyway, Brett would have lost it. I'll just go ahead and tell you, if you think he gave Georgia some grief over a running back, he would have Shane Beamered us. Oh yeah, we'd have had to hold him back and everything. It would have been awful. But Brett has been really stirring the pot the last few weeks, last couple of months really. And I thought I would show you that because I don't know why he's gotten so, maybe because he had a good year last year. That's probably what it is. And then topped it off with a win in a bowl game, and he's just kind of feeling his oats. But he has been talking. He's as bad as Diego or Thomas Castellanos. They all three have been doing that. Which, look, in the offseason, makes for interesting content. And speaking of content, if you like it, hit this button right here, the like button, thumbs up button. Lets me know to continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boo, 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 hit that button right there. Won't cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here's the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk J. And it's George McIntyre, not McKnight.
Oh, well, pardon me, Mr. Perfect. I guess I forgot that you never ever make a mistake.